Impala. Hey! Somebody can finally show Fergus some wild dogs. Well, at least we know we're heading in the right direction. And I've absolutely no idea which pack it is of wild dogs. Honestly, not a clue. And we've got a bird feeding party here, so that's something for us to look at while we wait. And while I wait for my name to be called. I do want to get closer though. Let's have a look at the... Oh, excuse me. Yes. Thank you. Oh, struggling this morning. And of course the drongo flew away. I think I terrified it with my unexpected sneeze. And it's gone. It's now just a tree. There you go, everybody. Found a tree to show you. Oof. I don't know what it is at the moment. There's something in the vehicles, I think. Oof. Dust. And hello to Shar, who is 8 years old. Absolutely, wild dogs are like wolves. They're much smaller than a wolf, but they're basically our equivalent of wolves in Africa. And there's actually a big push to change the name, from wild dog to painted wolf. And when you see them, Shar, you'll understand why, because it looks as though they've got splashes of paint on their coat. And they live in a very similar structure to wolves. There we go, Roy's on it. And I can't wait, Shar, to show you, and then I'll explain a little bit more about why it is that they're so similar to wolves. Okay, we're going to send you back over to Tristan. He's managed to find his lions.
We have indeed. It's getting thicker and thicker, but these lionesses are still hunting. I've just seen one dart off into the thicket, ears flat. You can see the cubs have found themselves a buffalo of their own, but not one, unfortunately, that is alive. This is a buffalo that died during the drought, and they all came and sniffed, and they had these faces of kind of almost depressed looks. I think they thought they saw the horns and that there would be some food here, but alas, it's just a buffalo that succumbed to the drought. And you can see it succumbed to the drought because the nose area of that buffalo skull is completely intact. So just behind the cub's head, there we go. See, it's not been eaten away at all. Had that been killed by lions, lions love the nose section, so they would have eaten that section away quicker than anywhere else. But that is a massive buffalo. If you think about the size of those cubs when they were walking around, look at the spread of the horns. It's longer than that cub is. So you can see the curl of the horns is longer than the cub. So if you want to get an idea of just how big buffalo are, there we go. That's a good sort of size comparison of the horns with the cub. Now I just want to try to get around the bush because these cubs are watching the adults very intently, and I want to see quickly if these adults are not hunting something just in front of us here. This is where we heard that crashing going and through, and you can see why a buffalo would try get in here. It is perfectly thick for hunting, or for protection should I say, and hiding out. So I can see the lionesses just in front of me here going through the thickets. Now, we're not going to be able to go any further than this. I'm going to have to go round. But if we look through, you can see, Craig, over there is one. Come back out. I'll try point up that way. They're in that area. It's probably very difficult for you to see. I can just see the tawny color and a bit of movement. A little bit to the left, Craig, I think. Other way. No, you're not going to be able to see it from where you are, but they're in there somewhere. So I'm going to try to see if I can't negotiate my way through and get onto the other side of this thicket. So, Stanley, you're asking do lion cubs need... Sorry, I'm just trying to negotiate the thicket. Sorry, Chantal, can you just repeat that part now? Now I've forgotten because I almost hit a stump. Do they need like a domestic kitten? Well, Stanley, I'm not sure actually. I've never really spent enough time with a lion in terms of physical contact with it. I've seen them when they try and suckle from their mothers. What you'll find is that they'll often paw like this and knead at the teats to try and stimulate the flow of milk into the cub's mouth. So that's maybe where a little bit of kneading comes from. But other than that, no, you don't see them kind of kneading on top of sort of softer items that they find, or like a carcass of a buffalo or something like that. You won't see them actually kneading there. Now, this is about as thick as it's ever going to get when it comes to following lions, and this is when I am very grateful for the fact that we have these short wheelbase Land Rovers, because they're able to glide through these thickets where no other car can go. Now glide is probably not the right word for this, more like bash through these thickets where any other car can't go. So, I mean, good old trusty Wendy, after her day off yesterday, is now being put through the paces. So we've just gotten onto a stump here. Let's just quickly get into low range. There we go. You can still see the Pride is just in front of us, still moving. Sometimes you've got to kind of just get through the... Ooh, sorry, Wendy. There we go. Alright, we're almost through. It's just a big, thick Termites thicket. So we're almost through that way. Oh, there was a stump. Sorry, Craig. Now, let's just see if we can't find them. They're just up ahead now. So they're still looking into this thicket. I wonder if this buffalo is not moving, or whatever animal it is not moving. See how alert they are in front? They're watching very, very intently. And there's a lioness here. The impalas. There's impalas that have spotted them now. You can hear the impalas shouting. You hear? So I don't think impalas is what they're after, but the impalas seeing them is a bit of a problem. So that would have ruined, if there is a buffalo around, you would have found that these impalas making this noise is going to make it very hard for them to hunt. That buffalo will then be seriously on alert if it hears impalas snorting like this. But look at this lioness just sneaking off into the distance, and this is what lions do. They are so clever. They'll start a situation where they just encircle these impalas and they create panic, and then from there one lioness will break and chase, and the impalas then will run into one another and run into the other females, and they'll then sometimes get caught like that. But the problem is, an impala between this many lions is going to be really not enough food at all. You can see the rest of the Pride is on the left, so it's just one female that is looping around this side, and then the rest of them are that side. And I wonder if she thinks, while they have the attention on the rest of the Pride, if she doesn't just loop around, maybe she can get lucky and grab one. So it's quite interesting to watch the whole sort of dynamic. And when I was saying earlier that cubs will learn, watch how the cubs watch where the adults go. So they're checking, okay, there's one adult there, there's one adult there, and they just keep looking and seeing what's going on. Now the impalas definitely know the lions are here. They've spotted them, but it's more now a case of creating a bit of panic amongst these impalas and seeing if they can't chase towards one another and bring one down. Ultimately, it's not the best meal, but it's still nutrients. And if the buffalo has been sort of is skittish and has run off because of the impala's alarm calling, well, a bit of nutrients from an impala is not the worst thing either. So Skip, you've noticed as we followed behind the lions this morning that they have black tips to their ears. Well, Skip, remember that when you're walking through these thickets, it's very difficult to see each other, and it's really, really hard for the cubs to watch where mom goes, and so those black tips to the ears and black tip to the tail means that they can see their mother, and they know, okay, that's a safe way to go, and that's where mom is, and they can then follow in and find their mother. You'll find that those black markings, though, are not on the front of the face, because if they were on the front of the face, then the lions would have a big problem, because all the animals would spot them when they're hunting. So it's always on the back so that the cubs can see them. Now I see some of the lionesses are coming back, and you see their attention is not on these impalas at the moment. They're still looking into this thicket. I wonder if this buffalo is not somewhere in this drainage system, that they are busy watching it and seeing it. There's definitely something in here that's got their attention. You can see that they're kind of looking in there. Now I'm going to go that way because our other lioness has completely disappeared. She's going round onto the other side. So let's see if we can't get a better sort of look at these lions over here. I think, Craig, if we go around the other side, it's going to be better. because where we are at the moment is very, very dense. Poor Craig has had a tough time on the back this morning. He's been whipped by an aerial. He's had branches thrown at him. It's been quite rough through certain sections here. So hopefully this will be a little bit more of a settled period and Craig will have a chance just to relax a little bit. Now, our Impalas all in front here. I can just see them. Okay. Be careful. There's a lioness on the other side that you're not watching, all of you. Looks like they might have gone flat. Now, while our lions take a break and have a little rest, I believe Jamie has found the most endangered predator that we see here.
We do indeed have the most endangered predator, and not one, but several of them. And I'm still not sure which particular pack this is, but it's always an exciting sight. I'm so happy to finally see wild dogs, and they've just finishing off an impala kill that they have made. So there we go for our young viewer that asked about the wild dog and whether or not they are the equivalent of the wolf or whether they're very similar to the wolf. There you go. These are our African equivalents to wolves. And they live in packs and they behave in a way that's very, very similar to the wolf. They have an alpha breeding pair, and the whole pack is so tightly bonded that they will all care for the little ones. They are gorgeous creatures. And for our new viewers, these are not feral dogs. These are not feral dogs. This is a completely separate species that has actually relatively, in terms of millions of years, relatively recently evolved. You can see they've obviously enjoyed their impala meal, faces covered with blood. It was an adult impala ram. You can see the horns there. And they're all gathered together, and it's a bit of a feeding frenzy when wild dogs first kill, because everybody crowds together and the prey disappears within a matter of seconds. Right, I wonder who we've got here. My money's on the Sands pack, but we'll see whether or not we see any sign of a collar around one of the individuals, in which case it would be the Investic pack of wild dogs. Those are the two large packs that we see regularly. And it's good that they've got this particular kill, because somewhere in here will be one very pregnant alpha female. White Lady Eowyn is asking about how Ferg feels about his first wild dog sighting here. There you go. White Lady Eowyn, you missed Ferg doing a little celebratory dance in the back, but you got his thumbs up. I think he's pretty chuffed. I know I'm pretty chuffed. I'm very glad, because Fergus has been asking me for wild dogs for a while now. I haven't been able to deliver. You know, those fluffy white tails. Each one, of course, with completely individual markings, splodges of paint, if you will. I wonder if we can actually find the alpha female, because these dogs should be giving birth in the next 2 months or so. It is wild dog breeding season, so very shortly they will be denning, in which case the entire pack is devoted to looking after the female and her new puppies. MJ, no. Actually, these dogs are not closely enough related to other dog species to actually breed with them. So they would not breed with a domestic dog. If they met with a domestic dog, they'd actually kill it. They're far enough removed. Look, I think if you created a really artificial situation, perhaps you might get into breeding, but I don't think so. I think their chromosome numbers are completely different. They're a completely separate genus. They're in the canid family, but they are a completely different genus to the jackals and to wolves and to domestic dogs as well, which are all part of the Canis genus. So they are something completely different, and it's visible in physical differences as well. If you, for example, look at their front feet, they don't have a dew claw. They only have 4 toes. They don't have 5 toes in the way that your domestic dog does. So if any of you are sitting watching Safari Live with your dogs with you, grab their front paws, if they'll let you, and have a look at the toe structure of the front foot. It's completely different in wild dogs. They're missing that 5th toe completely. It's been dramatically reduced. And that's something that's quite fortunate, because we have a species called a wildcat, which can breed with feral cats, and that's one of the biggest threats. Now Dr. Hyena is obviously a hyena fanatic and would like to know how many hyenas it would take to steal from this number of wild dogs. Sure. I can't quite see exactly how many wild dogs we have here. I think we have quite a few. In which case, I would say that it would take a large clan of hyenas to steal from them. 10 maybe? Maybe a bit less. It depends on how desperate the hyenas are feeling, because wild dogs and hyenas vie for the second spot in the predator hierarchy out here. And we've very frequently seen wild dogs chasing and nipping and attacking hyenas, to the point once where one hyena tried to climb underneath Scott's car to try and get away from the wild dogs. So they will be aggressive in the face of a challenge by a hyena, and the hyena ends up snapping and having to back into a thick bush to try and get away and present the wild dogs with its business end, so to speak, the bit with the teeth. They do regularly come into contact with each other, but it would take a brave hyena to take on a pack this size. Lions, on the other hand, would not think twice, and they absolutely would come in and kill the wild dogs, and there's no way the wild dogs would be able to challenge them. They'd have to run away. I can hear a little bit of yipping. I actually want to reposition. I want to take us round to the other side, because the wild dogs are tugging. Oh wait, hold on, never mind, they're all coming back this way. Alright, we're not going anywhere. They're all coming this side. Now, little one Naira, talking about the fluffy white tails, yes, it does serve a purpose, especially when they're hunting together cooperatively as a pack. That white can serve as a beacon, because white shows up very, very clearly out here, just in the same way that the lions have black on the tips of their tails and on the backs of their ears. That's a way of highlighting fundamental features. For the wild dogs that scatter and race off in different directions, being able to follow a white beacon tail is a very useful thing. It's a very useful way, or useful sign. There was one wild dog puppy 2 years ago, I think now, and I can't remember. I think it belonged to the Sands pack, that was actually born with a black tail. Completely black, fluffy tail, which is very unusual. Unfortunately, if I remember correctly, that dog didn't make it. It was killed by lions, I believe. But white and black are always fundamental colors out here. Very useful. And of course, there's also the fact that wild dog tails are a very fundamental part of the way that they express. This is awesome. And they're still, and we don't have to race around. We can actually sit and watch them. Stephen, we often get asked this question, and Stephen would like to know if the predators are more tolerant of certain guides than they are of others. I don't think there is a massive difference, no. I certainly think that your tone plays a role in the way that all of the animals respond, especially elephants, not just predators. And obviously, you speak in a low tone, you speak in a calming tone, you don't go shouting around next to them. That's just basic manners, really. But I don't think that they respond differently to different guides out here. You could get a situation where one particular guide spends an inordinate amount of time with a certain animal, and perhaps that animal might learn about that particular guide. One thing I can tell you is that animals respond, if they are not treated well, they respond differently to different sounds of vehicles. Luckily for us, all of these animals are treated ethically, so they don't treat us any different. Right, speaking of predators and their reaction to the vehicle, let's see how the lions are feeling this morning.
Well, the lions are still busy hunting. That female that we saw flanking round seems to have gotten to the other side of the impalas, and all the other females just stood up because this impala slowly started trotting towards them. So let's see how we go, but it looks like they might start their hunt again. And what's interesting is that Rex told me that now on foot he had tracks for a lioness going into this area by herself. So that must be the pregnant female, and like I say, it is amber eyes. What's also interesting is this lioness that is just coming past the vehicle, so not that one, the one in front. She's seems to be developing a problem with her right eye. So her eye has gone dark, and almost it's getting a sort of cataract look to it. So it seems like she maybe, just maybe, might be losing sight in that right eye. It's interesting though, it's gone almost a very dark coloration, which is odd. But look at all the cubs now filing past. It's now time to move. I think cubs are hungry, so they're waiting to hear what's going on. But isn't this cool? We have been so spoiled this morning. The Nkuhuma Pride has been everything that they've lived up to. Well, they've lived up to everything that they kind of are for us. The fact that they have been active, they've moved, they haven't just been flat. They've been doing everything. They've been playing, they've been hunting. It's been the most spectacular morning with them, and I've thoroughly enjoyed having them back. And I hope that this is a sign of what's to come over the next few months of them being back in the area. It is too early to say that they're officially back, but the fact that they are where they are, this is the first time in the entire time that I've been at Safari Live, which is now almost, we're going on to 5.5 months now, the first time that I've seen the Nkuhuma Pride in this area, which is very exciting. It means that they're coming back into those old areas, and this is what they do. They tend to do this in the winter months. The summer months they disappear, and then in winter they seem to love spending more time on Djuma. And I'm really impressed at how well the cubs look. They're kind of all looking in really good condition. Now I'm going to try and turn so that I can make Craig's life a little bit easier, because he's battling to shoot through all of these trees. But what an incredible morning. Lions, wild dogs, hyenas, elephants, James being a paleontologist. It's all happening this morning, and really is been the most wonderful start to the day. And hopefully this trend will continue tomorrow for Saturday, because wouldn't it be nice if the Nkuhuma Pride was around for Saturday? That would be a good sign. I don't know when the last time we had the Nkuhuma Pride for Saturday was. Maybe last year sometime. Now, so Megan, you're from Texas, and well, I hope that you're having a wonderful evening. It should be the evening now in Texas. You're saying with so many females in the Pride that will stay with these older females, that wouldn't it not be difficult to feed so many lions? Well, Megan, yes, it's going to be a little bit tough. You'll often find with lions that they do start to split pride. So the Salala Pride is a prime example. The Salala Pride is now broken into 4 different prides, because there's over 40 of them in total in that bloodline. So you've got the Mangan Pride, you've got the Mangan Breakaways, which, like I say, have been renamed by Mala, but I don't know what the name is. I think it starts with a K or something, I can't remember. And then you've got the Salala Breakaways and the Salala themselves, and that comprises over 40 lions. So when they get to sort of bigger sizes, then yes, it becomes a little bit harder to feed themselves, and they will then sometimes split. The thing is that 11 lions like this, what we see now with these Nkuhumas, is really not too much of a stress. These 11 are okay. They'll be able to still sustain themselves and find food. You must also remember that out of the 11 here, there is, I think, 1 young male left, and so that young male in all likelihood is going to end up going off on his own, so you're actually only going to end up with 10. And we're not in the safe point yet. We still have that stage where these lion cubs can be killed if a new set of males comes in. But look at this. This is so cool. That's as good a picture as it will get. Look at the lionesses and the cubs all on this termite mound with this massive jackalberry. There we go. For those of you that like screenshots, that is it. Screenshots of lions on a termite mound, big tree. Absolutely perfect. And they're very alert. They can hear impalas alarm calling, and those impalas can't be alarm calling at them. It's too far away. So I wonder if it's not the 4th lioness or 5th lioness that is slowly heading back to these guys. See how they're looking? But there we go. That is a picture of Africa for me. A big tree, lions on a termite mound. Doesn't get much better than that. The only thing we're missing is a blue sky. But of course, if there was blue sky, then we would have a situation where there would be shadows everywhere. So this nice soft light actually means that we don't head too many shadows. Now I'm going to try and get a little bit closer so we can actually see these lions really nicely. Now, while I do that and try and reposition myself, let's go across to Jamie and see how the wild dogs are doing.
The wild dogs are doing wonderfully. Now that they've got full bellies, they are all feeling particularly playful, and they've been chasing each other around and squeaking and play fighting. It's just too wonderful. I can't describe the wave of affection that I get when I look at these creatures. They are so special, and the fact that you're looking at a couple out of 200 in this reserve, I mean, how many is it? I counted about 10 that I've seen clearly. Oh, somebody's getting their ear bitten. And the fact that there's less than 500 of them in South Africa alone makes every sighting with them special. Especially when you see moments like this, when you can see the affection between the different members of the pack. Playing, nipping. It's just so fantastic. There's a big male there that's standing in the front. And I saw the pregnant female earlier as well. She's in there somewhere, playing along with the rest of the dogs. Oh, somebody's got a nasty wound at the back there. I think, didn't one of the wild dogs have this injury for quite a long time, if I'm not mistaken? I think that injury's been around for quite a long time. It could be a different dog and it could be a different injury. That one looked quite fresh, but it could just be taking quite a while to heal. Doesn't seem to be hampering the dog either way. I wonder where they're going to den this year. It's no secret that we would absolutely love for them to den on Djuma. Can you just imagine if we had a wild dog den with puppies? I'm chuckling because Shamsun seemed to predict my thought pattern and wants to know what are the chances of that happening. What are the chances that they will den on Djuma? Slim, I would say. Slim to none. Although a bit better than perhaps last year when the lions were spending a huge amount of time on Djuma, and that would be a big red flag for a wild dog pack trying to choose a suitable den site. Perhaps we have a chance, but I don't think so. Chances are they're going to go and den in their regular places, which I think for the sand pack, if I'm not mistaken, is a property called Ottawa. Now, unfortunately, we don't have that much more time to spend with these dogs. We're going to have to move out of the sighting shortly to make space for other vehicles. And there you go, Michael. Yes, wild dogs will regularly use the same den site year after year. They can change. They're not strict about it. They can swap around and they can use different den sites at different times. Especially if they're, like I said, if there's a situation where the lions are spending a lot of time near their regular den site, they might decide to go elsewhere. There's some perfect termite mounds on Djuma. I'm sort of trying to get that message through to them via subliminal messaging. Okay, guys, come to Djuma. It's nice there. There's lots of Impala. Lots and lots of Impala. And some termite mounds. It's a good spot. Starting to feel like a property developer or real estate agent.
I'm going to start cold calling them.
I'm going to start cold calling them in the middle of the night. Hey, wild dogs. Scrapping over what is left of what up until a few hours ago was a healthy, happy Impala ram. That's what happens during breeding season. The rutting season of the male Impala, they're just not paying the same attention that they might otherwise, and all of the predators can take advantage of that. The pups are almost the same size as the adults now. They're a year old. They're almost indistinguishable from the rest of the pack. I'm not sure how many pups the sand pack had this year, but they seem to have done quite well. We've spoken about the fact that they are one of the most endangered predators that we see out here. In fact, the second most endangered canid in Africa. And Sid, you want to know if the populations are rising or falling? To the best of my knowledge, they've remained relatively steady, but I think you'll probably find that in all reality they're actually dropping a little bit, because these are creatures that need huge amounts of space, which inevitably brings them into conflict with human beings. And they're seen as a pest in certain areas because, of course, they're such effective hunters, and their numbers have to consume large amounts of meat, such that they could be a serious threat to livestock, unfortunately. So the smaller their habitats get, which is a general trend within Africa, the lower their numbers are going to be. The higher the concentration of lions forced into a smaller area, the more the wild dogs are going to struggle. They're also exceptionally prone to diseases because of their level of relatedness to domestic dogs, and also I got the prize, and also the fact that they are such sociable creatures. Diseases spread very, very easily within wild dog packs, so they're exceptionally susceptible to canine distemper and to rabies, which are some of the biggest threats to a wild dog population. We're just going to have to do some shuffling to make space for Ryan's guests to come and join us. Just wait for... Oh, how's it, Ryan? How are you? Good, thanks. And Painted Wolf, who is onto a good username there. Painted Wolf would like to know if it's possible the decline of wild dogs is related to their rather unfortunate name, because a wild dog sounds like a feral dog, something not really worth protecting. I think that there is a vague connection, and I think that the name change is a very good idea, to try and change them to Painted Dog or to Painted Wolf. It will certainly help to reduce the stigma attached to them, but I don't think it's really... Let me try and phrase this properly. I don't think it's going to go a huge way in terms of saving their numbers. You need a far greater educational program, reintroduction programs, and there are. I mean, the Endangered Wildlife Trust, the EWT, does huge amounts to monitor these amazing creatures and to try and reintroduce them back into their historical range. I hope the name change does help to reduce the stigma. I mean, if you read the book by Louis Stevenson Hamilton, who was one of the... He basically was instrumental in founding the Kruger National Park back in the 1920s. If you read his book, he talks about how he would shoot wild dogs on sight and try to get rid of them because it was basically a carnivore extermination program, because people's idea of conservation at that time, entirely well-meaning, was to get rid of the carnivores that were reducing the number of antelope. So terribly, terribly misguided. But it'll take a long time to shake the idea, especially for farmers struggling elsewhere, to shake the idea that these animals are not pests. They're beautiful, rare and unique. I mean, look at the spots on their coat. Extraordinary looking creatures. Hopefully it will change. They also turn up in the strangest of places. The reserve that I used to work on never had any wild dogs on it, until all of a sudden it now has a pack of wild dogs that denned there last year, and they now live there. They just came running in from the Kruger, across roads, and settled in. I love that. Jules, you want to know what the local or Shangaan name for wild dogs is? Mahloa. Mahloa is as far as I know, the Shangaan name for wild dogs. You'll hear us call them Madash a lot on the radio. That's part of Game Drive. It's a weird thing with Game Drive lingo on our radios. We use a lot of different words for different animals, and often it isn't actually related to the local Shangaan name. And of course we've got lots of different languages here in South Africa, so it's inevitable that you'll get some odd crossover moments where you get different languages popping in. English, Zulu, all sorts of things. And Ngala is not the name for lions either, the Shangaan name for lions. Hold on a second. Let's just go forward a little bit, we'll get a better view. So mahloa, the HL sound is the hla sound, mahloa. Not entirely sure how to spell that though, you'd have to ask James. He's much better at languages than I am. If I had to guess, I would say M-A-H-L. No, I'm not going to guess, I don't know. We have to ask James. Finishing off the last bits of Impala, one just sort of lying there and holding on for dear life. And very shortly I think they're going to go and have a rest. Let me just jump on the Game Drive channel quickly, speaking of our Game Drive lingo. Are there any stations on standby for these, Madash? Copy, copy, standby 1, you can make your way. Okay everybody, it's time for us to say goodbye to the wild dogs. Unfortunately, there are other people that would like to come see them. If they stick around towards the end of the sunrise safari, we might be able to make our way back in. It just depends on how things go. I don't want to leave either, I promise, but it's only fair that everybody gets an opportunity to see these wonderful creatures. And it would be tragic if a guest didn't have that opportunity. Okay, I'm going to move out and let another vehicle come in. While we do that, let's go across to James, who is still on his stroll.
Hlolwa. And Rex was saying Guhlolwa means to seek, to look through the bush in the way that a wild dog does. So Mahlolwa means, I guess, those who seek through the bush. And the word that is used on the Game Drive channels, which is madach, is not in fact a word at all. Well, it's a word, but it's not one that has a Shangaan origin, and apparently the local people use it every so often, or it comes from the sound that wild dogs make, which to somebody somewhere, and it's stuck in the lexicon, sounds like Dutch. So madach means those who sound like the Dutch. So that's not a real word. I'm not sure which ones Jamie gave you. Mahlolwa is the correct term, which means those who seek. Here we have the purple pan weed, and it was interestingly found in a, everybody together, 1, 2, 3, pan, correct, well done. And it's got a lovely smell, a very sort of quite strong herby smell about it, but the smell in my hand right now is sort of overpoweringly that of hemizygia, which is this one here. And from a distance it smells like, oh, I don't know what it has a unique smell. It's sort of a sweet sage-ish type smell. At a distance it smells almost like cocoa, like sweet chocolate, but then as you get closer it's much more herby. Anyway, that's what that is, and that's one of the strongest smelling and one of our very favourite, and I know Brent likes it very much, one of our favourite smelling plants out here. And then what seems to be some kind of wild asparagus. And you can see the wild asparagus here. It's got quite nasty thorns on it. They're not particularly sharp or hard, so I mean they don't stick into you, but difficult if you wanted to eat the wild asparagus. It's not the same asparagus that Steph was using to cook with the other day. I don't know if you remember that. That has a much finer leaf. And so I might be wrong about it, but I'm pretty sure that it is a wild asparagus of sorts. But the smell of this hemizygia is just quite amazing. And I remembered saying how when I went to Cornwall about 2 years ago, I went running there, and all along the hedgerows I could smell something that smelled so familiar, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And it must have been well, probably not related to this at all, but there was something in those hedgerows that smelt like this plant, and it made me think of home, naturally enough. Funny how smell can do that. I will also say to you that we found tracks of the lioness who's missing. And the lioness that's missing, of course, is Amber Eyes. Her tracks headed straight into the drainage system around about where the rest of those lions are heading. and I'm pretty sure, as Tristan sort of hinted, that she is perhaps giving birth there, which is very exciting indeed, and I think that is the amber-eyed lioness, if I'm not mistaken. Now, Shah, you are 8 years old, and you want to know if these are edible. Some of them are edible. You can eat the wild asparagus roots. Those are definitely edible, yes, if that is a wild asparagus. The hemizigia, I suspect you can cook with, but it's very strong. It'll give you a very strong smell, and the seeds are also quite nice, and they're quite similar to those of the wild aniseed out here, and I think they're a very closely related plant, and you can certainly cook with the leaves of that plant. The purple panweed, I don't think so, no. The purple panweed is used for all sorts of illnesses, one of which is an illness of the sort of undercarriage, if you like, not to put too fine a point on it. I'm not sure if it works or not, but it is quite extensively used for that, apparently. But it's got a lovely smell, quite a strong herby smell, like I said, but I don't think it's edible at all. No. But hemizigia is the one you want to find out here, and it's not very common. We found a nice big patch of it, so it's very nice to have found it. We are heading now due east. The lions are over there. They're heading sort of towards the Vuatela waterhole, Galago Pan, the drainage system north of the Galago Pan. That's where we think the amber-eyed female is perhaps giving birth now. So we're avoiding that area, and we're going to go down over the next ridge, across to that enormous jackalberry tree, where what did we see there yesterday? Oh yes, where everybody, in fact, saw the two giant eagle owls. That's the sort of direction we're going, hoping perhaps to bump into some elephants on the way. The weather has turned pretty foul, really. It's well, I mean, it's very pleasant to walk in. It's a nice temperature, but it's very ominous, and the mist has turned into a cloud. I thought the mist was going to lift, but it hasn't lifted at all. It is now definitely a front that has come through here, and of course it is a big warning in the morning when you wake up and your head has a sort of ice cream headache from the cold. You actually know that it's probably going to be quite a warm day because it's clear. When you wake up and you think, oh, it's not so bad, it's not so cold anymore, you know it's going to remain as such for the rest of the day. Good. What else can we find through here? Let's have a look down at this termite mound. Okay, I think before we look at this termite mound, Tristan seems to have caught up with the lions. And I will just tell you that there's a lot of lovely heat coming off this termite mound, so I'm going to warm my hands while you go off back to the lions.
Well, we haven't caught up to them just yet. They're starting to move now. They were on top of a termite mound, very stationary, and they're starting to come in this direction. And I'm hopeful that they're going to come and drink at Galago Pan, which is right here behind me. And what I want is to get that picture of all of them sort of spread around the rim of the pan itself, because that will be just absolutely phenomenal. So we're just sitting patiently waiting. They were slowly walking along. You can see how dense it is where they were. So they were coming this direction slowly, and I'm hoping that they are going to just pop out in front of us here somewhere and going to come towards the pan itself. It obviously would be fantastic if they do, because we'll end up with a situation where, like I say, we're going to get this sort of ring of lions around us. And when you see that many lions drinking at a pan together, it really is quite something. So that's the hope for what is going on. Now, I can't see them, and I was hoping that they would come out just somewhere in front here, but it seems like they may have been waylaid slightly. They also were looking like they might go into the dip, and if they go into the dip, it's going to be a little bit harder to see them. So I think I'm just going to go around just in case they do just go straight past the pan. They might find that they don't drink at the pan because the pan is not what they really like. But we are on the backside now of Vuatela, so they are slowly on their way, and like I said, those of you that are on dam cam, just pay attention, because they might just pop out that side at some stage during the day today. So while we try and see if we can't find these lions in this little thick area that they've gotten themselves into, let's go back to James, who seems to be peering into a termite mound, wondering what he's looking for.
Well, funnily enough, I'm looking for termites. That would be what one generally looks for in a termite mound. These ones have come out. They're all the soldiers, and they've come out because both Seb and I went, oh yes, look how warm it is. And then I saw them coming, and so I moved my hand, and Seb put his hand there, and then what happened, Seb? You were attacked, weren't you? Mercilessly savaged by one of those things, and he whipped away, swung around, and flung his hand about the place, because one of these termites bit into his skin. And it was very sore, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it is quite sore.
Yes.
Now, interestingly, I was saying earlier how they're so solid inside these termite mounds. But if you look, I mean, you can't actually see because it's so dark in there. But there's quite a sort of hollow, cavernous chamber in there, which I would have thought was quite unusual in one of these mounds. And if you want to know what a termite mound looks like inside, you can go along, I'm sure you'll find it on YouTube. You just look for, I don't know, so YouTube termite mound, or maybe in an ant nest, but they poured concrete into it and then excavated the whole thing out and took all the sand off it, and obviously it was an empty one. And it is amazing the structures under the ground that were revealed by creating that cast or mould. But you can see the whole video unfolding. So these are all soldiers. All the workers, when the threat that my hand sort of represented was placed over the top of the chimney, the workers disappeared inside, and the soldiers came sort of summoned, I think, and they came to the top, and the workers have gone down. So these guys are waiting for another attack. Rita, you say, what is the purpose of the termite mound? The purpose of the mound seems to be largely for insulation and safety. So it's hard, it's very difficult for anything to get into, but at the same time, it provides insulation, it provides a very warm place in the winter and a cool, air-conditioned place in the summertime. Now what happens, Rita, in the summer is that this mound, you can see it's moist. I don't want to touch it too much, but oops, dear, and because I'll get bitten, but you can see it's moist. That moisture comes from the water table. The mound, as the old cliche goes, is just the tip of the iceberg. Down below the ground, there's an enormous network that goes all the way down to the water table, and that's where the water comes from here. And these chimneys are lined with moisture during the winter, just during the summer. And that then acts as a sort of natural air conditioning. And what happens is that vents get dug further to the side and around the base of the mound that then suck air in. And so you have this airflow in the middle of the mound that keeps it cool, which is really rather clever. Why these guys build mounds and others don't, I'm not sure. This is the only species in this part of the world that builds a mound. It is called the large fungus growing termite, and of course we know that they, well, maybe you don't, but many of the termite species grow fungus, as many ants grow fungus, in order to help them digest the dry material, the dry plant material that they eat. And those fungus gardens are tended just below the surface of the mound and quite close to its edge. So if Seb just follows the line of my stick, you'd probably find if you dug over here, if you dug over there, you'd probably find that there would be a sort of fungus garden somewhere around there, and sometimes the fungus comes out of the ground in the wet. Roshni, you want to know what kind of termites these are. As I just said, they are the Macrotermes natalensis, or the large fungus-growing termite, and they're the ones that build these enormous mounds. And of course, this is a tiny mound. They can get up to, I don't know, 3 or 4 meters in height sometimes. And interestingly, they tend to only be found on these granitic soils, so not down south where the sort of soil becomes much more clayey and less well drained. Tim, you want to know where the soil comes from? Well, it comes from under the ground. Basically what happens is that they start to dig out a hole, and they pile the sand on top, and they glue it together with their own dung and with their saliva, and it just comes from under the ground. It's more, I think, in volume than the volume of the soil dug out, because of course it is mixed with dung, which comes from eventually the organic material around here, and their saliva. But yeah, it's just basically the dirt from underneath. So that which has been used to create the chambers and tunnels and chimneys is what is used to form the mound. How on earth the termite knows how to build? Nobody really knows. Now Sid, you noticed some of the soldiers shaking like that. That is an alarm system. That's how they're signaling to each other that trouble is afoot. Now if I put my hand over the top, you might find that they start to shake a little bit more. Well, there's a little bit more shaking going on, but that is apparently a way of sort of exuding pheromones, and that tells the others that there is trouble. I'm just trying to induce one of them to bite this grass stalk so that you can see how powerful the bite is. I have put my hand in here live before. I don't feel the need to do it again just yet. There's always the risk that I'll say something. There we go. Can you see the one attacking this? They quickly realize what's a threat and what isn't. There we go. Now Roshni, you say how to identify the soldiers. Well, it's very easy with these guys because they've got those great big pincers on the front of their faces. The workers don't have those. They've got different mouth parts. They can't bite. The workers' mouth parts are not used for attacking. They're used for building. And so they don't have these enormous mouth parts, vicious biting mouth parts that the soldiers do. You've got one shaking there. There's a worker.
Where?
With the end of the grass stalk. He's just gone in there. I think he's been told off by the soldiers. There, he's carrying something. Can you see there?
Yeah.
So he's now showing his alarm, but you can see, although he's carrying something, he does not have those biting mouth parts. He's got carrying mouth parts. And Rosny, you want to know what the hierarchy is? Well, there's no real hierarchy, I don't think. You know, they've all just got different jobs. There's a sort of stratification of labor, if you like. If there is a hierarchy, then it exists in so much as the queen is the dominant with her king, and they live, well, probably on this mound about, I don't know, 4 feet below the surface of the ground, possibly even at least below the surface of where you're looking now, in a chamber, out of which she will never escape, because she is now probably almost half a foot long, with an enormous distended abdomen that produces a constant stream of eggs every single day. So that's quite amazing. And then her king lives with her in the chamber, and he just sort of mates with her and eats, and has food brought to him by the workers, which is, well, I mean, it's nice work if you can get it. Good. Let us move along from the termite mound here. Cynthia, you say what causes termites to abandon the mound, and that's a good question, because of course if you look around us here, you can see this termite mound is actually profoundly extensive. I'm going to ask Seb to wait there, and I'll walk all the way around it for you. Cynthia, they don't abandon the mound. They don't sort of pack up their bags and go off, as my apocryphal story of Jan the Black Rhino the other night might suggest. I don't know if you've managed to hear that dreadful joke that I told. But what happens is that the queen will die, and the rest of the workers will carry on going. I'm still walking around this mound. They'll carry on until they all die themselves. They probably survive about a season, a few months at a time, the workers and soldiers. The queen can survive apparently up to 15 years, but once she pops her clogs, or perhaps if an aardvark or something digs in there and catches her and pulls her out, then the mound will sort of die off. It'll stop, because eventually all the soldiers and workers will die, and they won't be replaced. Sometimes, from the size of these mounds, it would appear that what does sometimes happen is that she is replaced either from within the mound itself, or during one of these massive termite emergencies, you'll find that a female and male will land on an existing mound, dig down into that, and kind of start their colony in an already sort of, not quite thriving, but an already constructed mound. I'm sure that does happen quite a lot. Good. Let us press on from here. See what else we can find on our way. And while we do that, let's head across to Jamie Patterson. Unfortunately, she's had to leave the wild dogs, but I don't know where she's going from there.
I have left the wild dogs, but I do potentially sighting of Tingana. And because we've seen Tingana recently, I went with the wild dogs. We know how quickly they disappear. But what that does mean is Tingana somewhere here been left unattended and walking. So now we have to try and find him quickly before the end of the sunrise safari. He's somewhere in his favorite drainage, one of his favorite drainage lines. Very close to where I spent a fruitless day searching for shadow. Oh, there we go. Don't like that hill. It ends with a nice big bump at the top of it. Makes driving smoothly up there quite difficult. And the bumps in the road, of course, are not for speed. They're not speed bumps. They're for water. They're to stop the water running along down the road, because it's a much easier passage for water to travel on a road than it is through the vegetation. So one of the consequences of putting a road in is that you can actually really dry out an area, because you destroy the natural seep of where the water would usually go. So by putting bolsters in, which is the official name for the speed bumps that we go over every now and again, then you put mitre drains on either side. So basically you grade strips back into the bush where the water can get caught by the bump and flow outwards. Okay, I'm going to go search for Tingana in the bush, but apparently Tristan's lions are coming out.
They are indeed. We're just now starting to cross the road. You can see they're still heading in an easterly direction steadily. They're kind of now going across Mvubu Road north on the northern side of Vuyatilla and still heading slowly eastwards. And there they are, filing out of the bush one by one. Now you can see the female at the back there. She's the one with the bad right eye. Now I'm hoping she's going to turn her face so we can actually see her. Of course she would face the other way. That's typical, because that's how it goes. And here comes the fourth one. Like I said, it's that female that's going out onto the road now. She's the one whose right eye is not looking great at the moment. And you can see when she turns, there you go. Look how opaque it's gone. It's not looking great at all. So I don't think she's going to have too much vision out of that eye. And I'm not sure how old that is, or whether or not it's been like that for a while. But isn't this cool? Just having them walking past the car is such an amazing experience. And you can see now we've got all the little cubs coming out. There we go. Hello guys. Healthy and happy cubs, that's for sure. So Sid, you say you hear there's a new coalition of 6 lions taking over the Sabi Sands. Well, Sid, I'm not sure where you got that information from, but that is not true. There is no 6 male lions anywhere in the Sabi Sands currently. The biggest coalition that is slowly starting to move in is a coalition of 5 that gets seen down in the southern part of the Sabi Sands, very, very seldom, right on the eastern bank of the Sand River, down in the deep south. Now, I can't remember their name. It starts with an M. It's M-A in something like that, Matimali or something like that. I can't even remember now. But there's 5 of them, and they are so kind of in and out. It really is negligible at the moment as to actually sort of considering them as being in the Sabi Sands. The Sabi Sands is very much still run by the Majingalans in the west and central areas. You've got the Birminghams up here in the north, the Charlestons in the south, and then every now and then we'll get those males that we were talking about coming through, and then you'll sometimes end up with a situation where you'll get sort of vagrant males every now and then. But these guys are just disappearing. Look at how well they camouflage as they move through the grass. It's amazing to see the sort of coloration as they go, and now you can actually see why those black ears work so well. See the contrast of the black ears when they walk? You can see it very, very clearly, and that's how they're able to follow one another through horrible bush and thick grass like this. It means they don't lose each other when they've got those little black tufts to the ear itself. But they are on a serious mission all of a sudden. They were very sort of static, and now all of a sudden they're going. So Shah, you're 8 years old. Welcome, Shah, and it's the first time I think I've heard from you asking a question, and you want to know, do lionesses always hunt in a pride together or a pack together? No, they don't always. You'll sometimes find a lioness will hunt on her own, particularly if she's got cubs and the rest of the pride doesn't. Then she'll often be left by herself, and that will mean that she'll have to then hunt by herself, and they'll go after much smaller animals, but they can still and will hunt on their own. So it's not always in a pride system that they hunt. Now our lions are kind of still moving slowly but surely up, and we almost leapfrogging with one another as we go. I'm going to try and see if I can't get round into front of them. So yeah, a lioness is very sort of adapted to being able to hunt on its own accord. They do hunt very well by themselves. It's just that it's much easier if you're in a pride system. If you're in a pride system, you can use one another and you can try and sort of circle around an animal, and it makes life a lot easier when it comes to hunting. Just going to try and get Wendy round. Wendy's steering is not what it used to be. She doesn't turn very well. She turns almost like a Titanic ship. So she's not the best when it comes to turning. So it's not easy. Right, Craig, be careful there. Poor Craig. Craig, you're not going to have to go to gym today. You've been battered in the back there. It's like he's gone 10 rounds with Mike Tyson today. But that's what it takes to follow lions. Oh, she's gone into stalking mode. What have they seen? So she's right here. Look at her sort of posture now. It's changed. See, that ears are very erect, head pointing forward, much slower movement now as well. Look, you see? She's stopping and she's listening. I wonder what they've spotted. Maybe they've spotted some impalas. Where we are now is really good terrain for things like impalas. But look at that difference in her body posture. As opposed to when they were crossing the road, it was a lazy kind of ambling along, head was bouncing around. Now, look at her, her neck is out and she's watching very carefully. Lioness in the back, same thing. They're all stopping and they're taking visual cues from one another. So they're each looking and seeing what's going on and whether or not the others have also spotted something. What have you seen, girl? I don't see anything. It's not that thick here, but yet I can't see what they're looking at. Must be something that they've spotted. I wonder if our bull giraffe is still around from the last few days at the dam, because he's going to have a bit of a tough time if these lionesses end up coming in that direction. It seems whatever it is, it's not too serious a threat at this stage, or serious a prey item. You're wondering if prey animals associate the group of vehicles and sounds of these vehicles crashing through the bush with predators. Well, sometimes yes, you'll find impalas will immediately stop feeding when they see 2 or 3 vehicles approaching through the bush, and they'll look in that direction and try and see if there is anything. After a while, if you sit for a long time, then they generally relax and realize that there's nothing there. Or if they see elephants or those kind of things, then generally they calm down a little bit. But yes, they do. Hyenas actually are, funny enough, the best exponents of vehicles. What you'll find with a hyena is that it will hear a vehicle and it will come straight to where that vehicle is, because it knows we often follow predators and then there's a chance for food. So hyenas are the worst when it comes to that. Now our lionesses are still just moving off one by one, so I'm going to try and see if I can't just keep up with them and see what is ahead of us. Now Craig, I think let's go through this gap here, because that's going to be better for us. Just watch this torchwood on the right here, Craig. Sharp little thorns. Always got to be a bit careful when you're driving near torchwoods, because if there are branches on the ground, they can do a lot of damage to a tire. It's a hard spine and it's not very good for your tires to drive over branches of a torchwood. Now see, our lionesses are still marching now. Whatever they spotted is not too big a threat or too big a sort of opportunity, because they seem to be not really that interested anymore. They've kind of carried on. Maybe they just saw a glimpse of something in the distance moving, and that's why they kind of had a glimpse and then they've stopped now. Sometimes they spot things like steenbok, and steenbok for a pride like this is, 1 is going to be very fleet-footed, and 2 is going to be very difficult for them to actually catch. Now, I believe James is trying to get hold of me, so let me get hold of James quickly so that he doesn't shout at me. James. The lions are heading straight east in the block off Mvubu North, just north of WildEarthTV Dam. Okay, copy. They mobile northeast from there, so maybe that's what they've spotted, because they all just stopped now. So I think they might have spotted James in the bush here, because James said that he can hear the vehicles approaching, and maybe that's what the lionesses were stopping to look at. So James is going to try and make a hasty exit away from all of this. Not to worry, we were the other side of Mvubu Road. We've just they've started marching now. So I was just saying that they are walking a lot faster. They were very sort of stationary, not moving very much, and all of a sudden they've decided now to start moving, and so they've caught James a bit unaware. He thought they were on the other side, and so he's going to try and head the other direction and get to some sort of safety, because you don't really want to be walking around with this many lionesses kind of lurking about. Hopefully he'll be alright. He says that he's not that close. He can kind of hear us, but we're not close yet, which means that he'll be more than safe where he is. And it looks like they're now heading south again. I don't know where these Nkuhumas are going. They're heading in a very odd direction at this stage. It's not an area that I've ever followed their tracks before. Generally when the Nkuhumas come in, they seem to go kind of Simbambili, that direction, and then, where are we going to go here? Let's try go this way, Craig. So Charles, who's 8 years old, hello Charles, I hope you're enjoying seeing the lions, and you're wondering why our females don't have the manes like the males do. Well, the simple reason is, Charles, is because the males fight with one another. So Charles, I don't know if you have a brother, but when I had a brother, we used to fight a lot, and we used to try and wrestle with one another, and the lions do the same thing. And so when they bite one another, they have to be a little bit careful, because they've got big teeth, and so those manes help to protect around their neck and make sure that they don't get hurt. And so that's why the lions have the mane, and the lionesses who don't fight with one another and don't play around like that, they don't have to have that, because they don't have to be sort of hurt by another lioness. And so that's why the males have that. Also, it signifies a male, when he gets that, it shows to the female that he's very strong and very powerful, and that makes him a good daddy and a good man to have around to look after the pride. So that's why they have it. Now I see they've gone up onto the most beautiful termite mound, which I'm going to try and see if I can't get to. See there, through there, Craig? Now hopefully that other vehicle is not going to ruin our shot, which I think they might just do, but I'm hoping not. But there we go, you can see she's on the mound there, and she's just sitting watching. You can see WildEarthTV in the distance just behind her. Isn't that cool? Oh my girl, what are you doing up there? Now the thing is with lions is, often when you drive, they'll keep moving because of the sound of the vehicle. They can use that to disguise their movement. So when you stop like this, it often means that they'll just slow down a little bit and tend to sort of not move as fast. But I still see the lionesses are still going along, and I really wonder where they're off to. They're striding out this morning, and it was strange because they were very, very, very sort of static, and on a termite mound they were very happy, and then all of a sudden they just got up and started walking. I don't know if maybe they heard something, maybe they heard contact calls from another lioness or something like that, and they've now headed in this direction. And it's not a nice place that they're heading into at the moment. It's very, very dense, thick bush, lots of monkey oranges here. So it's a bit of a battering on poor Wendy this morning. I'm just trying to negotiate this horrible thicket. Try to see if I can't get round to that termite mound. But if the lionesses are moving, you'll find that the cubs are going to come down. They're not going to stay long on the mound itself. And I think the cubs are starting to get a bit tired. You can see they're starting to pant a little bit. Mouths are open. The sun has come out, so it's getting warmer. And so I think now they're going to start kind of getting into that situation where it's time to kind of lie down and rest. But the females seem like they don't want to stop. They're still busy walking, and I wouldn't be surprised that they go all the way to Buffelshoek Dam this morning and end up then resting in that area, because that's where they're heading. They're heading in sort of now a northeasterly direction towards Buffelshoek Dam side, so I'm sure that's where they're going to end up. So, Mister, you're wondering how many lions there are in Kruger right now. Well, I mean, it's a difficult number to know for exactly how many there are, but they think that there are about 2,500 lions in the Greater Kruger National Park system. So that's what they estimated at. It's obviously a difficult number to know because lions are not easy to count from the air, and that's how they generally do their census, is from the air itself. So when you've got a situation where you're trying to count from a helicopter or a plane, sometimes you can miss lions. So it's like a plus minus figure of 2,500. So it's still quite a good healthy population of lions that we have in this area. Now our elephants have made it a little bit difficult here because there's lots of ditches everywhere where they've dug up for roots from last year's drought. Now we're going back into this monkey orange. I was hoping we were going to head away from it, but it seems that they're going to drag us straight back through it. Shazan, you're wondering how many coalitions there are in the Sabi Sands. Well, let's go through them because I've never actually counted them all. So let's start with the Birmingham boys. So that's one. Then you've got the Majingalans, you've got the Charlestons, we've got these new males that are down in the south, which I forget the name, but that's now already 4. Then we've got, well, the Solala boys are not really a coalition just yet, so we can't count them. The Matimbas, every now and then they make an appearance. That's 5. There's the 2 Avoca males that have been hanging around the west. That's 6. Then the 2 males on Mala Mala, I also forget their names. So that's now 7. So that's, I think, about it. 7 of them. That are all big males that are pretty much starting to sort of dominate and have territories. In terms of young males, there's quite a few younger males that are still around as well. Girls, are you going to stop today, or is this just going to be a day where you're going to walk all day long? You can see why the Nkuhuma Pride can be tough to track down. You can see how far we've gone, and we've not spent much time on a road at all. So we can count ourselves very lucky that we managed to find them on the road this morning, because otherwise we would have been tracking them through lots of thickets, trying to just keep up with them, and they are still going. You can see every chance they get, the cubs lie down to try and rest, but the females are just dragging them further and further and further. And sometimes it can be hard to be a cub when mom tells you it's time to walk and you don't want to. And I suppose they, rather than being left behind, they'll try and keep up. But let's carry on and see if we can't get around. You're wondering about the Mapojos and if there's any descendants left. Well, yes, there's I'm not sure. Nkuhuma Pride was Majingalans. There is Solo from the Solala Pride, who's a dominant male inside the Kruger. He's from the Mapojos, I think. Other than that, no, not really. There are, I don't know, there's people out there that have followed the Mapojos a bit more. I've sort of lost touch a little bit with their lineage since I left the central parts, because that's where the Mapojos were most dominant. But there could be 1 or 2, maybe somebody out there that can help us. I know there's lots of you that follow the lions, and especially the Mapojos, intensely, and they'll know exactly who are the daughters. But I know the Ottawa Pride are definitely daughters for the Mapojos, but other than that, I don't think there's too many. The Mapojos, funny enough, were not successful when it came to raising lots of cubs. They ended up killing each other's cubs all the time, and it was not a very successful coalition in terms of growing the numbers in the Sabi Sands. They killed a lot of lions, but they didn't actually contribute much to the actual sort of sustainable population of lions, whereas the Majingalans have been far better. The Majingalans have many, many offspring inside the Sabi Sands, but Mapojos not so much. Right, so we're still crashing around, still trying to keep up with these lions. They're still going very, very far. I'm sure we're going to pop out onto Gowrie Cutline the way we're going at this stage. And while we do that, let's see how Jamie's doing and whether she's had any more luck since her wild dogs.
Tristan's done an amazing job of following those lions this morning. An entire lion-filled sunrise safari. He's going to be so happy when it comes to breakfast time. No luck with Tingana, I'm afraid, and unfortunately the area that he's gone into, apparently, is a very, very bad signal area for us. It's right in a dip, far away from any of our repeaters, and we were struggling to get signal there, so I've left. We'll try again this afternoon. I bet you he's going to be at Red Dam. That seems to be his route. He walks along that drainage line, which is basically a smallish river, dried up river, and then he pops out at Red Dam. So hopefully that's what he does by this afternoon. And there will be wild dogs. They're not going anywhere. It's getting warm. They've got full bellies. They're going to go lie in the shade. Exciting prospects. It's a pity we didn't get Tingana though. We would have done 4 out of 5 of our major predators. We had a hyena this morning, the lions, the wild dogs. Would have been nice. But maybe by this afternoon, leopard and cheetah. Done. Sorted. All 5 top predators. Oh, apparently, sorry, I forgot about this until a moment ago. Lou sent me the correct spelling of Mahloa. That's the Shangaan name, if you cast your mind back to the conversation we were having. Kids don't do this at home. Don't text and drive at the same time. Mahlolwa. Pretty much what I would have guessed, but I would have left out the second L. So that's Mahlolwa. Mahloa. There you go. Now we have the spelling. Especially since James can't tell you himself because he's broken the bushwalk backpack. Not sure which aspect of it, but something has happened. So if you don't see James again, it's not because he's been eaten by the lions, it's because something's happened to the bushwalk pack that the cameraman carries. The cable snapped. There's quite a few cables on that though. Roshni, you've asked the question on everyone's mind. Since the time change, this last half an hour is dominated by discussions between ourselves and whoever happens to be on camera with us. This morning, of course, being Ferg, about what breakfast is going to be. That is what happens between 9 and 9:30, unless we've got something massively exciting happening. We're still thinking about the animals, but we're also thinking about breakfast. So yesterday we had sausages and bacon and waffles. We had waffles. So I don't think Happiness is going to make us waffles again for breakfast. I'm hoping for pancakes. They've got some chocolate spread that's calling. Ah, it's fruit breakfast. I say like a spoiled brat because we're very lucky in the way that we eat. Ah, I'm sad now. I was hoping there'd be some eggs thrown in. No, Happiness does the most amazing fruit spread. It's actually not just fruit, it's fruit and crackers and cheese and cold meats, and we are so spoiled. Coming from having worked in other areas without saying any names or any places or any times where sometimes we actually didn't get dinner because there was nothing left over, Wild Earth has been a breath of fresh air where food is concerned. I cannot complain about the food, even if it is just a fruit breakfast. Continental. They certainly keep us healthy as well. Although, Happiness makes me laugh. Every time she sees me, she's going, "You must eat more." Lara Moore says Nutella. It is delicious, is it not? Where am I going? Where am I? Oops. That's not the quickest way home, Fergus. That's not the way to breakfast at all.
I thought you were taking us to Hoedspruit for a...
Hoedspruit for eggs and bacon at the Wimpy. I once, speaking of Hoedspruit has a couple of takeaways. Actually, Hoedspruit's quite a thriving little place. It's got a KFC, it's got a Wimpy, which has now pretty much become solely South African, and then some really nice restaurants. But the KFC has a drive-through, which when it was built a couple of years ago, was quite a thing in Hoedspruit. A drive-through takeaway. And the first person I saw go through the driveway was a person on a horse. And if that doesn't tell you enough about Hoedspruit, nothing will. I love that town. Oh, and a spur. How could I forget the spur? There's a spur as well. Who was that? Sorry, Chantel? Oh, William, my friend. William is 8 years old in Oregon. Yesterday, William said I could come and stay with him if I ever go to Oregon. And he said that we will have elephant pancakes. Now, William, I don't think we're going to be getting elephant pancakes for breakfast this morning. That's something you'll have to save up for me when I get to see you. How do you make elephant pancakes? Are they in the shape of an elephant? I think that sounds incredible. I might try that one day. I hope you're having, William. I hope you're having elephant pancakes, William. Oh goodness, we're getting all the pancake suggestions. Roshni's saying blueberry pancakes. You guys do realize that my stomach is now actually contracting in on itself. I'm starting to drool down the corner of my mouth. I'm so hungry. Blueberry pancakes. Maybe Happiness would have made her trademark scones. Scones, jam and cream. Oh. Ah, we've got somebody, I didn't catch your name there, I'm sorry, but apparently somebody worked in a spur at Nairobi. Seb. Seb, like our Seb. Sid. What? Yeah. Sid. There we go, Sid. Sid, you worked apparently at a spur in Nairobi. A spur is wonderful. It is really, truly a fantastic place to go. The goodie burgers. Mushroom sauce. James did work at a spur, you're right. James did work at a spur. He still remembers the happy birthday song. I'm trying to imagine James singing a happy birthday song to some patron in a spur somewhere, and I'm really struggling. I am really struggling to visualize it with a big smile on his face. It is very hard to picture. Worst spur I ever went to was in Belfast. No offense to, that's nothing against the city itself, but the spur was, maybe I just got there on a bad day. I was just so excited to see a familiar setup. No, it was Belfast and Ireland.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, it was Belfast Island. The signal should be very strong here, so we're not sure what's gone on. Obviously the gremlins decided that our morning was just far too smooth and that they had to make a contribution to this drive as well. The gremlins are the little creatures that sneak in during the night or during the day, and they attack different parts of our feed or our electrics, or in Tristan's case apparently our mechanics, because I've heard a rumor that Tristan has broken down. So James broke the bushwalk backpack. Tristan broke. Ah, he's back up again. Never mind, he's okay. I was going to say, poor Tristan broke. Oh, is that all? Oh, that's alright. Apparently he just had a flat tire. That's fine. I was picturing bent steering columns and having to go and rescue him before breakfast. Tow ropes. Phew. Especially after the discussion that we've just had about the food. Okay, what can we find you for the last 3 minutes of the safari? To Intent Impala. What are you looking at? Oh. I know what they're looking at. People walking in the road. Let's have a look at them. Not the people, the Impala. There we go. Here we go. 2 male Impala staring off into the distance. Oh no, walking off into the distance now. with a little hop, skip and a joyful jump to celebrate what has been a marvellous sunrise safari. And luckily we can finish off to the gentle tones of someone hammering something in the lodge. What do you think about that, mister? I'm hoping for some of that really nice cheese for breakfast. You've put me onto a topic now that is, especially because I'm now about 2 minutes away from happiness's breakfast, that really it has become quite a struggle. I can even smell breakfast from the lodge every now and again when the wind blows. Lovely, those are some beautiful trees, and one, there was an impala there. It's gone now. Oh, is there a monkey? Where is there a monkey?
He's now behind the crowd.
Ah, well done, Fergus. Hey, awesome, well spotted. Cool. What a nice way to finish off our sunrise safari. Adding another animal to the list of creatures that we have seen today. Okay, time to finish off and go to breakfast, so it's time for us to do our goodbyes now. Thank yous. Thank you, Fergus, for the wonderful camera work. I'm glad that we could show you some wild dogs. That's definitely come as a relief. Thank you to Chantel and to Lou in Final Control. Or was it Jerry? Who's your D2 this morning? Louise, it is Lou. I thought so. So to Lou as well in D2. Most importantly, a big thank you to all of you for joining us. I hope you've had fun. I think we've managed to see lots this morning, and hopefully this afternoon on the sunset safari will be no different. I will see you then in a few short hours. Bye-bye, everybody.